Hello there, cat people. Dan the Catman here. It is a Thursday evening in early October, and welcome to, why am I telling you that? What do you care? And welcome to episode 29 of the Shelter Cats podcast. And we're going to Brooklyn tonight. Well, not really, but I'm speaking to a wonderful rescue from Brooklyn. The Shelter Cats podcast, ready for my intro? The Shelter Cats podcast is my labor of feline love. All about the shelter cats that have saved my life, that have influenced my life. All about the people, be they rescuers or trappers or shelter directors or fosters, that have made a difference, big or small, in the life of a shelter or a homeless cat. All about those people, and I hope will serve as an inspiration to get you to help shelter cats as well, by adopting, by fostering, and by not shopping. Adopt, don't shop. Right now, as I'm speaking to you in my Brooklyn accent, I think I have one, but some people have told me they don't hear it anymore. Right now, there is an amazing cat in a shelter, in a foster, in a rescue, in your town, where you live, no matter where it is, dreaming of being your amazing shelter cat and saving your life like my shelter cats have saved mine. So go adopt, don't shop, and if you have one, get another one, get a third if you have enough room, because they do well when they have friends, most of the time. So episode 29, I'm speaking to a wonderful rescue person from Brooklyn who is very, very new to the game, very new to rescue. She's only been at this for a year. She is Laila, and she goes by the name of Brooklyn Rescues, or BK Rescues, on Instagram and TikTok. And she just, through a very tough, heartbreaking story, she was inspired and driven to just get in there, get certified as a trapper, and make a difference for the lives of shelter cats in the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn, which is a very, very crowded, tough, influential part of Brooklyn. So how do you find me? Because I want to hear your stories as well. The wonderful thing about how this podcast has evolved is I'm able to have conversations with so many rescues in Brooklyn, in Philadelphia, on Long Island, New York based right now, but I'm we'll be having other guests from other places in the country, in California, North Carolina, in other states as well, Tennessee. But there's just Brooklyn, New York, Long Island is such a concentrated area with so many people and so many homeless cats. So I've had the honor and the privilege to be able to speak to so many rescue groups that are in there day in, day out, trying to make a difference, trying to get these cats off the streets and TNR'd, or homes for the friendly cats. So I want to hear from you too, because I want to hear your story. Even if you just have an amazing cat that you want to gush about, because we all think our cats are amazing. Mine are better, but you might think yours are better. So you can find me on the web at tylerthecat.com. My email is dan@tylerthecat.com. The Facebook page is Shelter Cats. The Instagram, TikTok, Threads is Shelter Cats Podcast. The Twitter is Shelter Cats POD. The YouTube page, where I'm doing, kind of videos of the audio of the podcast, but they're doing well. The YouTube is Shelter Cats. I do a Medium blog every Saturday, which is sheltercats.medium.com. And you can support the podcast on Spotify, look for the dollar symbol, and Patreon by searching for Shelter Cats. You don't have to support it, but if you do, I can get better microphones. But even if you just listen and share the show with your friends, that would be support enough for me. So with all my preamble out of the way, today's guest for episode 29 is Laila. Laila goes by the name of Brooklyn Rescue, BK Rescue. She's a new to the game rescue. She was in Borough Park in Brooklyn, which is, a different animal in terms of where she is now in Bed-Stuy. There are different different cultural aspects at play, different outlooks, different opinions on cats and how people feel about cats. So now she's in the Bedford-Stuyvesant or Bed-Stuy part. Why did I say it that way? The Bed-Stuy part of Brooklyn. She is part of a wonderful network of fosters, of rescues, of trappers. She learned from a wonderful trapper. She's now teaching and imparting what she's learned to newer trappers. And most importantly, she's made a difference in the lives of a good number of cats that otherwise may have gone sick, may have had more kittens, may have contributed to the population explosion. She's in there, she's fighting the good fight, and she's making a difference. And she has wonderful insights into how she got started and just what is going on with the state of the homeless cat population in Brooklyn particularly, but in New York City proper. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Laila of Brooklyn Rescues. Enjoy. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome to the show, finally.
Yeah, I'm glad we could make it.
We've been trying for what, 17 years? I'm so
Oh,
happy to
goodness.
finally have you on the show. So, all kidding aside, so welcome to my Shelter Cats podcast. I've forgotten everything we spoke about on purpose because I wanted to hear it fresh when
Great.
we were actually recording. So,
Yeah.
the whole part, one of my cats just jumped on me. Hello. So, I have feline staff. The whole point
Wow.
behind my podcast is to kind of give voice to people that have benefited the lives of shelter cats, homeless cats, feral cats, colony cats in any way. So to start, can you introduce yourself and how you got into cat rescue in Brooklyn?
Sure, yeah. Thank you for having me. My name is Layla. I am a rescuer based in Bed-Stuy. I only moved here about a month ago. Before that, I was rescuing in another part of Brooklyn known as Borough Park. The dynamics are totally different in these two areas, and um, yeah, it's really I really dove right in um, when I when I started rescuing. Um, just sort of accidentally fell into this. There was a cat that I was taking care of when I first moved to Borough Park, and again, do you mind if I just need to close the door?
No problem.
All right, perfect.
This is not a completely scripted show, so
Gotcha.
foibles are welcome.
Awesome. Yeah, so I started taking care of a colony of cats that were right outside my window in Borough Park when I moved there about 2 years ago. And one of them fell sick very suddenly and then just kept getting worse and worse, and no one was getting her care. She didn't have any shelter to stay in. And I literally watched her crawl into a hole in the wall.
Oh God.
Um, and when I posted a video of her doing that and the conditions she lived in, people were horrified. I think that video reached like thousands of people very, very quickly because it was so awful.
Right.
Yet no one did anything to help this cat. In the end, her name was Missy Andrew. Um, she was one of the sweetest, friendliest cats I've ever encountered. And I had been planning on trying to find her a home. She clearly did not belong outside. She's very affectionate. Um, she would wait for me. She'd come to my house and wait for me at the steps. Even though I
Oh.
didn't regularly feed her, she pets. She didn't want food. She wanted pets. Um,
Oh.
yeah, she was really, it was life changing to meet her. And I fell in love with this cat. And I could see her being a happy cat someday, in someone's home, and finally getting the love she deserves. And as I'm working out all these things, trying to figure out how can I get her into a rescue, who can help her? Because I'm just an individual at this point, just a pet parent who found, cats to take care of. And mine was already very sick, so I couldn't really bring in another cat. Mine was also immunocompromised. Um, um, so, Miss Andrew just was so loving. It really struck me. There were other cats in her colony, but she really struck me as someone who belonged indoor. And so when she started losing fur and having this like bleeding sores everywhere, I was like
Oh
really
God.
alarmed. Yeah, and actually the people who were feeding her stopped feeding her because she looked so scary, because they were afraid to, I'm sure, contract anything or bring anything home.
Right.
Um, so I started to reach out to people, reach out to New York City Feral Cat Initiative and any rescue I can find. And everyone told me the same thing, get certified as a TNR certified rescuer. And some folks offered traps, but I needed to arrange for holding space, where she could recover. I needed a way to get um, a vet's appointment, which would, of course, not be subsidized unless I was a rescuer. So making all these things happen it was really challenging, for someone who wasn't familiar with this sort of work. And
Right.
so I finally did it, and I went to trap her that day. Um, and I even got a call from New York City Feral Cat Initiative. Sorry, my feline friends are also being rowdy.
No, that I love that as the background noise. It's very appropriate.
He's trying to open the door with his hands.
I,
Yeah.
I feel like he's trying to contribute to the story.
Yeah, exactly. He always tries.
Wait a minute, you forgot this part.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So Miss Andrew, I I got everything ready for her. She had a vet's appointment, um, a place where she could stay, and I went to get her, and she wasn't there. And someone told me that she had been put to sleep
oh
the
God.
day before, and I was shocked, and I broke down there because I didn't see this coming. I knew she was sick, but it looked like, something external, nothing serious. And then someone told me later on that she had sepsis and had bacteria in her blood, which is pretty awful. And the vet said there's nothing they could do. She was too far gone. And that was sudden because I had seen her the day before, so she had declined very suddenly. Um,
So who
and
trapped? Did you trap her? Did someone else
I
trap
didn't
her?
trap her. I think she must have been so sick that the feeder, who
Right.
doesn't have a
Okay.
trap. I was told that she only had a carrier, so someone must have grabbed her and put her in a carrier because she is a friendly cat, uh, but she was difficult to even administer flea medication to. I tried, um, but she was, she had been out there for years and years, so a little skittish, but um, that's the story of Miss Andrew, and it was a preventable death. That's how I usually think about it. If she had better living conditions, that skin infection wouldn't have become so serious.
Right.
Um,
Right. How
if
long
she was
ago was this?
that was exactly a year ago, so last September.
Oh wow. Oh, recently.
Yeah, yeah. And since then, I have rescued and TNR'd over 25 cats. I don't know how many over 25, but about 25.
Wow.
Um,
So this is real. You've really been doing this for only a year.
oh yeah, it feels like a lot longer because I started to rescue suddenly after, when I couldn't help Miss Andrew. I just thought all this, all these like little pieces that I had to align. So it's just now what? And so my goal is to never let another cat on my pass like that on my watch. Um, and I blame myself to this day, but I know that I didn't know how to help her at the time, but had I gotten through it faster, maybe I could have saved her.
But you tried.
Yeah.
You at least
And
tried, and that I think that's when you said you shared the video. Thousands of people looked, and nobody,
yeah,
so few people responded. At least you tried.
yeah.
I think there, if there's a bright spot, is at least you tried, and in her memory, look at what you've done in the year since.
Yeah, I really dedicate everything that I've done since to her. She's taught me so much about being brave, standing up for them, being quick, because it is life or death. You think that they may be a little bit sick, someone else will step in, but usually you are that someone for them. That's what I learned. Um, and since then I've met so many people, so many. I've met a network of people, network of rescuers that I have connected to who support me, and I support them, and it's a little community actually. The Brooklyn rescuers are kind of like a small town of
Right.
people.
Yeah,
Everyone knows each other.
I've learned that as I've had the honor of interviewing them. So going back for just a second, did you grow up in Brooklyn?
I grew up in Brooklyn. I wasn't born here, but I did grow up here.
And,
And spent my college years in the city and then came back to Brooklyn after that.
and did you grow up with cats?
I didn't. No, my I encountered the very first cat. Um, One morning I just heard these cries and I went to check what it was in the alley behind my house where the trash was kept, and I found a tiny kitten who started crawling up my leg. And that was it.
Oh, and you were
And that
you were hooked.
Yeah, exactly. And that cat was the one that was very sick for a long time. He was the one, he's the one that started all this. His name is Cookie, and now he's this gorgeous, gorgeous, gray and white kitten who's like living out the years that he, basically the time he lost as a kitten being sick. And there was no way he was going to live had we not gotten him treatment for what he had, which is called FIP.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
and that's it's like a black market drug that the FDA hasn't approved, but it works. It increases their chance of survival from 0% to 80%, which is a big deal. And I thought to myself, I'll take that chance.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was awful, not knowing whether it's going to work or not. But he is a testament to the fact that it works. And he's the one I took a chance on, and I look at him, and it's incredible what you can do if you put in a little bit of care. The state he came to me in was really, really awful. There's something very wrong. But that's my introduction to the cat world.
So you started in Borough Park.
I started close to Borough Park. So I was in Kensington, which is the neighborhood over. Um, and then I moved to Borough Park after a year after I found the FIP kitty.
And for people that are not in Brooklyn, how far would you say is Bed-Stuy from Borough Park? Because I know they're basically
Oh,
two different worlds.
yeah, yeah. So it's like I would say they're like opposite sides of Brooklyn at this point.
Okay,
It takes about 45 minutes by car to get to. Um,
okay, yeah, that's what I grew up by Coney Island.
yes. So I actually delayed moving to Bed-Stuy for a while because there was no one to take care of the colony cats that I had started to care for. Um, the ones who survived Miss Andrew. And it's a really rough area, honestly. There isn't another rescuer doing the work in that area, and there are many reasons for that. But you know, the fact is that there isn't anyone covering the area.
Well,
And yeah, go ahead.
no, no. And by that you mean Bed-Stuy.
Um, no, Bed-Stuy has about 70 plus rescuers. We have a whole
Oh,
community of rescuers, but Borough
oh,
Park
Borough Park. Okay.
has no one. I mean, that is why it took so long to get help for Miss Andrew. I couldn't connect with anyone because no one was doing TNR in that area.
And why do you think that is? Is it the like a cultural thing in the neighborhood? Why do you
I
think
think,
that, like, 45 minutes in one borough of one city? Why do you
mm,
think there's such a traumatic, a huge difference? Can you speculate?
um, yeah, certainly. I've tried to figure this out myself for a long time. The year that I spent rescuing in Borough Park, I had to ask myself that question every single day because why, how on earth did I end up with all these cats who need rescuing? And as kitten season kicked in, it was like it was raining cats, like raining kittens.
Right.
Um, so I would say there is a there's a cultural aspect to it. There is there's also like lack of TNR coverage. So even if there was, I think there was like some TNR done in this area from my research that went into Miss Andrews' care. Um, I found out that there was someone doing TNR in the area, but that was 10 years ago. And so there hasn't been anyone doing TNR, no record of anyone doing TNR. And what happens is that, cats really just multiply. Their reproductive cycle works against us. Um, and
Is
over
it?
time,
Isn't
yeah.
it in 4 to 6 months a kitten could have kittens? Am I correct?
Yeah, by 4 months of age, they can start reproducing, and a cat who is lactating and has just given birth can still get pregnant. Is that not crazy? It doesn't stop them from reproducing again.
They're still kittens. My Mona, who's literally sitting next to me where
Yeah,
I'm recording, she was a 10-week-old kitten. And to think, in such a short period of time, she could have had kittens of her own.
we've seen it,
It,
and
it's
it's
just wild.
heartbreaking.
In a blink of an eye, you're out of control with kittens having kittens having kittens having
Kittens
kittens.
having kittens, exactly. And over time, it just gets harder and harder to control that population. What you get is an explosion of um, cats in concentrated areas where there hasn't been any TNR done. So um, I cleaned up my block. I got all of them TNR'd, and then I slowly expanded um, whatever areas I could reach out to. A couple of blocks from my house, I once in a while would get, people reach out to me with kittens that were found, sick kittens who needed care right away. And so, my plan to TNR in an organized way wasn't always sustainable. I had to um, kind of abandon the plan and take in whatever cat needed me at that point. And that's one of the issues, you can't that it, the rescuing complicated cases really takes away from the TNR because that's more of a methodical. We're gonna it's more of a larger scale difference. So I try to
Right.
balance my time between the two, rescuing and then adopting out friendly kittens versus doing TNR of feral cats.
So you operate independently.
I operate independently. Yeah.
So when you, so the cats that you care for are in your home,
Um, no, not
or
always. So
or
rescuers like me, have to operate at the level of organizations. So we have to have fosters, a network of fosters who will take in the cats that we rescue. Um, and I am connected to others. I work independently mostly, but I am connected to a community of rescuers, especially locally, sort of gathered community of rescuers in Bed-Stuy. We call ourselves NARN. I forget what it stands for, but something like Neighborhood Alliance for Animals or something. Um, and I'm really fortunate to have that support here in Bed-Stuy. Um, and so we help each other. So if I don't have the space, space is always an issue.
Right.
I have cats who need to be separated from cats who haven't been vaccinated and have just been rescued and brought in from the outside. And sometimes it gets really scary. I brought in a cat we weren't sure what was going on with her. She was very sick, and um, it could have been something very contagious. We had no idea. So you have to keep these cats separate. You have to quarantine them, and that's one of the ways that I think a lot of people can help. If you do have an extra room, um, and you want to work with a rescuer like me, it makes a really big difference. Um, so again, going back to how I do this independently, I have to find fosters. Um, thank God for social media. Sometimes people will reach out. I'll post about a cat, and people will say, "Oh, that's a really cute cat, and I really want to help this cat," or "I feel bad, and I do have a room, and why don't I foster this kitty?" And that's how I started. That's how I started adopting out, fostering out cats. So that way I can rescue, let's say, 10, 12 at a time, and they can go to foster homes. Um, Otherwise, it's not sustainable. Otherwise, you end up with a home where you have, 20 something cats in one room. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's
it's a mess.
it's a hoarder situation in no time.
Exactly.
So,
It's a thin line.
it's only been a year. How did you start? So, Miss Andrew, is that the name?
Hmm.
Um, it could have been very easy for you to just say, I can't go through that again. How did you how did you like pick yourself up, dust yourself off? I hate that phrase, but
Yeah.
how did you then what was the next step? How did you get started? Where did you how did you come across this network? I'm assuming Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah.
What was your first step? How did you get going from that point?
Um, I I was really fortunate. Someone had another rescuer who was in Sunset Park, like one or two neighborhoods over, had responded to my plea for help because I was contacting everyone trying to see if someone can help this cat. And so she had already a lot going on, and everyone's overwhelmed.
Right.
All the rescuers are, constantly overwhelmed, perpetually overwhelmed. So she had offered help, but she wanted, me to kind of do it by myself. She wanted to sort of enable me to do more on my own, which is, I really do respect that. Unfortunately, I maybe I didn't reach her soon enough, but she did stick around, so
Right.
Andrew passed, and she worked with me. We have been working together ever since, and she really mentored me.
That's great.
I would love to say that I did this by myself, but I didn't, and that's something that's so valuable, the experience that comes with it. It is a hard thing to navigate. You are just a citizen one day, and then you've seen all this suffering and you can't turn away, and you just have to stumble in the dark and figure it out. I have. Every other rescuer has. Um, and that's what I hope to do for others. I really do enjoy working with others, teaching them how to trap the cats, how to care for them, how to care for the colonies. Um, and that's where you can make real impact. I think after Miss Andrew passed, I had a really hard time, but I felt such passion. And I
That,
just,
that's
you know,
great
it was like,
that's great that it didn't leave you.
no, I just felt more passionate than ever, and I felt brave. Not, I was scared for her up till then, but I thought, had I not been so scared, I would have been able to take action quicker. Um, and when I say brave, I do mean brave. I've gone up against people coming at me with hammers. Like it gets intense. When I say rescuing, it really is like middle of the night, tiptoeing around people who don't want you around and who
Right,
don't
right.
want the cats around.
It's
All
a tough
kinds of situations.
it's a tough neighborhood for sure.
Yeah, and that continues to be true even in Bed-Stuy, even though I do have that support network, and I'm learning so much from them. Of course, every single day you encounter a new case, and we kind of distribute the cases amongst ourselves, whoever happens to be closest, whoever happens to have the resources to take on. And I didn't have that in Borough Park. Every single case was mine, of course.
Right. No,
So
it's
yeah,
so really it just like you became part of a whole network of people that do what you do,
yeah.
and it's just wonderful that you all kind of help each other and teach each other. So did you become? This is another thing I've learned recently is becoming certified as a trapper. Did you become certified?
Yes. So when I thought Miss Andrew still needed to be rescued, I in a rush became certified. There was an online I found a way to get certified online through the ASPCA rather than waiting. So the Neighborhood Cats is the organization that holds certification workshops every month. I had missed one, and the next one was going to be pretty far away. So I found that ASPCA has um, an online virtual sort of certification process. I did that. And I could still, at that point, a lot of vets were not working with new rescuers like me. I also don't have access to ASPCA free spay and neuter appointments. Um, and a lot
And
of
what?
people don't.
Why is that?
So uh, when the pandemic happened, ASPCA shut down a lot of their they reduced the number of spay and neuter appointments that were available. They slowly opened up those services, but what ended up happening is that they they already don't have enough appointments to serve all the rescuers who are certified. So as new rescuers get certified, they felt that it wasn't really useful to have new people certified because they didn't have enough appointments to begin with.
Right.
It's a little bit of a strange reasoning on their part, I think, because what ends up happening is that I rescuers like me don't have access to those appointments, so we end up paying out of pocket for um, and slightly reduced prices at private vets. But at that point, when I started rescuing, I couldn't even get, I couldn't even work with um, certain vets. A lot of vets told me we're not um, working with new rescuers at the moment, or we're not starting new accounts with rescuers. And so, we didn't have the ASPC appointments. We didn't have um, the vets to rely on, the low cost vet appointments. And it really was really difficult for a while. And slowly they've opened up. Um, Places like Park Slope Vet Center have opened up, and I think Faithful Friends is another one that rescuers rely on heavily. Um, so they opened up their doors to new rescuers. There are lots of barriers to becoming a rescuer, but the first one um, is a pretty reasonable one, which is becoming certified as a TNR certified rescuer, which is just, it's just a lot of information that is packaged into a workshop where you kind of just learn how to care for a cat, how to trap them, um, how to handle community relations so that the cats don't suffer. And it's really basic stuff, and it sounds more complicated than it is. I wish that's one thing I would do differently if I look back. I would have become certified sooner. I think that would have made a difference for Miss Andrew and all the other cats who came after her. Um,
But now
because
you
that,
are.
yeah, that connects you to a lot of resources. Not as much as I had hoped, but you still find a way. There are doors open for you once you get certified.
How long does that process take? You did it all online, you said?
Yeah, it takes literally, I think, less than 2 hours. It's just a
Oh,
video
okay.
tutorial. Um, Problem is that you still got to line up having a car to transport the cat, having trapping experience. If you've never done it and you're handed a cage, that's a scary place to be in. And it is a life. You don't want to just trap willy-nilly. Um, but that's what I had to do at the time. And over after Miss Andrews' passing, I did learn little by little. But working with another TNR certified rescuer definitely made a big difference for me.
That's great. So you were able to kind of tag along with that other person and kind of
Yeah,
learn the right way to trap and I guess the wrong way to trap.
yeah. I think that this rescuer really, I think she was as affected by Miss Andrews' passing as I was, and she really dove in and kind of held my hand through all of this and helped me clean up the colonies that were on my block.
We'll have to
Um,
have her on the show because she sounds
yeah,
like a
she's
wonderful.
amazing. Her name is Rose Martin, and she's a rescuer in Sunset Park.
I've
I did
heard the
a
name. I've heard the
Yeah,
name. Yeah, yeah.
she and I did an episode for the NYC Rescuer Alliance.
Yep.
Um,
John Lynn
and
was
and
on the
they're
show.
Yeah, exactly. So she's my mentor. Rose is my mentor, and she's really helped me with everything from actually getting me a trap to how to trap and how to care for the cats, um, and how to maintain community relations. That's such a big part of it. Yeah, and it depends on what area you're in. Of course, community relations means something completely different in Bed-Stuy versus in Borough Park, where
Right.
yeah, often the cats aren't wanted there.
So, and you said since in the past year you've been able to TNR 25 cats.
Yeah, and if I had a steady space like a basement or some space where I could have the cats before and after their spay and neuter surgeries, I would have done so much more. There's always more that I can do, but lining up the resources and making the logistics happen is the most difficult part of TNR.
Is that because of Brooklyn, or is it just because of why is that the most difficult barrier? Why do you think that is?
Um, it is space, and that is part of that is being in New York and never having enough space. Um,
Sure, sure.
and part of it is like with TNR, you want before you trap the cats, you have to have a space that's safe and temperature controlled, so you're not putting the cat in like a garage where it's going to overheat. And because after their surgeries, they're really vulnerable to temperature fluctuations. They can't regulate their body temperature, so they do have to be in a temperature controlled space, and you have to watch over them and make sure they recover because it is a procedure,
Right.
even though and they are generally under general anesthesia, so it does involve a bit of recovery.
And that takes a few days, I assume, right? I've heard
For
as much
the
as 7
males,
days.
for the males, it is 1 day. We try to trap the day before an appointment, or sometimes 2 days before the appointment, and then the day of the appointment, and then after that, 1 day of recovery, and after 24 hours, you can release that cat. But if it's a pregnant cat or it's a female, um, we generally, even if it's not pregnant, we generally give them at least 2 days, 2 to 3 days to
So,
recover.
so the first night they're always really pissed.
Yes, they are a little loopy, but we have
And
to watch them really carefully, of course. Some of them are not. Some of them are, that this is when we find out whether they're friendly or not. Sometimes we think it's a feral cat, and you come back and it's like purring and wants to play with you.
so
I've
they,
seen all kinds of reactions from the cat.
so of the 25, how have any found homes?
Of course, yeah. I've had at least I'd say 12, more than that, I think.
Oh, so
Have
about
found homes.
so half of them basically.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, cool,
Yeah,
cool. So, half found. That's still obviously everybody wants to do more, but that is something to celebrate. Half found homes, and
absolutely.
12. Okay, so half were TNR'd, but
Yeah.
think of the dent you put in the population just by that alone.
Oh yeah.
Just by that alone. That is. I mean, thank you so much thank you, Miss Andrew, for inspiring this, because without that
Mhm.
obviously horrible,
Mhm.
unfortunate experience. I have a colony in my backyard, and
Yeah.
I lost the mayor Frank to FIP earlier this year.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's a tough one.
Literally, it's and I'd heard of it. I wasn't aware of it. I had
It's a tough
fixed.
one to diagnose. It really is. And with a feral like that, it's really hard.
He was fine one day.
Mhm.
He had a distended stomach. All of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, it's like, wait a minute.
It's quick. FIP is known as being quick, and the cat goes downhill super fast. But with a feral like that, it's especially difficult because you can't do the daily injections. You can barely touch a feral. You
Yep,
know,
he was untouchable. I had to
yeah.
with I don't know if you've heard of John DeBacker.
Mm-mm.
He's more Long Island based, but he does
Mhm.
trapping basically 24/7. I don't think he sleeps.
Wow.
Um, he does, so he's helped me a few times, and he's
Wow.
much skinnier than I am, and I'm not, and I'm I guess slender-ish, but he's like half, he's like tall, he's like a tree. So my
Yeah.
guy Frank had gotten under the front deck of the house
Uh-huh.
through a hole, and even though he was in a very bad way, he still fought every second of being
Yeah.
trapped, and it was still too late. So I understand it's like in the blink of an eye,
Yeah.
and that it inspired you to keep going, and you you've learned these skills. So my next to last question is, can you explain like how you do trap? So now you've learned, you've worked with wonderful people, you're part of a wonderful network. So you get the call, like the bat signal in Brooklyn, you know,
Yeah, we
it,
get the bat signal from an app of some sort, maybe
it
Facebook, maybe
you know,
maybe next door, maybe an email.
or somebody texts you, it's the cat symbol, not the bat symbol.
Yeah.
You see the light, a cat is in need, I will go. I will go. So how do you do it? What's unless it's a secret? How do you trap the cat? Somebody says, "Hey, Layla, there's a black cat on East Blank Street." How
Yeah.
do you do it? What's the process?
Well, so what happens is if the cat's in really bad shape, we improvise and we figure out how to get to them as quickly as possible and how to line up vet care and transportation because the cat trap is enormous. It's a 3 feet by 1 feet wide um, cage. So it's pretty awkward, and I'm only 5 feet, so it's a pretty awkward thing to run around with. And you can't
Oh,
really walk a block with that. That's like 16 pounds plus a cat. That's 16 pounds. That's a lot,
yeah.
or even 10 pounds. and going up and down the stairs and going into basements to for when you have the cat in it, when you take the cat to the surgery and back, it's a lot. And that's another reason why this process is a bit painstaking and it takes a lot of little pieces to line up. Um,
And you
but
said,
so, yeah,
sometimes they don't always want you there as well.
yeah, not everyone is going to want them there. People are sometimes afraid of the sick animal. Sometimes people just don't like cats for whatever reason, you know. Um, and so what we end up doing is sometimes people will just give away cats. Honestly, I know a lot of rescuers who just happen to find sick cats on their doorstep. People will dump cats if they know where you live and you're a rescuer. So we do try to keep it somewhat on the down low where we are located.
Right.
Um, it's be in fear of finding dumped cats and kittens, which is, so heartbreaking. I myself have gone outside to find a very sick cat who was in heart failure.
Oh,
Someone had just dumped him. He was in bad shape.
they just figure you'll handle it.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. We don't know what happened, but it's possible someone really cared for him for a long time and had no resources to care anymore. I try not to judge, but it is heartbreaking nonetheless. And I've also gotten calls and texts from people who say, so and so gave me your number. And um, I have, oh yeah, this is a real one that I got. Someone said, there, you can go pick up a cat who's sick on so and so street. And I showed up. Someone handed me three spray painted kittens, painted red
Oh, God in heaven.
in a milk crate, and I was not prepared for this. Isn't even those cats were not even the ones I went there for. So I had to find that one. Um, and he was like, if I hadn't received help from like the kids who were playing on the street, I wouldn't have found that sick cat either. So, you show up with like one carrier and turns out you need three. And that's the story of rescue, really. You're always improvising. You never have enough resources and you just make do.
So it's more. So it sounds like the actual trapping of the cat is the easiest part. It sounds like
Yes.
the logistics of having what you need to trap, having where to go,
Hmm.
having the vet that'll take you in. It
Exactly.
sounds like it's like a whole shipping department. It sounds
Oh yeah.
the actual getting the cat into the trap. It sounds like that's the easiest part. Am I wrong?
Oh yeah. At once you've got if so in some cases if the cat isn't super sick, we'll get him used to eating at a certain time. Or we may even put the food in the trap so the cat thinks, oh, this is just furniture and just gets used to it. That's called trap training. So there are so many ways to go about doing this, making this easier for us, for everyone involved. Um, you know, and sometimes, honestly, sometimes you should never try this at home, but sometimes we just hand grab them. It's happened. I can't say it hasn't.
Is
Um,
there must be like I feel like I would be I don't trap very much.
yeah,
I colony care more than trap. I
that's
feel
still
like
valuable.
I feel like I would be too impatient with trapping. Do you feel like you just want to like get them in the damn trap when
You
sometimes it
know,
takes a few days, like you just said, of getting them used to things? Is there a
yeah,
feeling of impatience that comes
I
over
am
you?
a I am a very impatient person, but honestly, it gets easier as you do it. In the beginning, I was out all night trapping in my car. Now I don't have a car, so it's a little bit more difficult, more challenging to haul traps around and go back for the cats when you fail, let's say the first night. Um, so now it's gotten easier, thankfully. So it takes me like my record is like 5 minutes. I literally put the trap down last week, last Thursday, I think, and before I turned around, the cat was there. thankfully.
Right. They should all work that way.
I know. And it was great. The cat was fixed, no drama, and returned on time. And he has a regular feeder. It was perfect. And it's not always this perfect. It's usually a bit of a struggle. Or you want multiple cats and you get the mom and you don't get the kittens, or you don't get all of the kittens. And it's a game of patience for sure. This is the only thing that I can do with patience when it comes to cats. I have the patience.
Yeah, I guess you have to have the patience. So you hear there's a cat that needs to be trapped. You
Hmm.
assess the situation.
Hmm.
You arrange the logistics of trap of some community relations. Maybe give out cookies or something. Um,
Yeah.
and then vet care, and then get the cat into the trap, and then it goes to, like you said the night before. Once you trap the cat, it goes. There's
It
the night
goes to,
before where the foster, or wherever you have
yeah, let's
space.
in my bathroom. Let's say I have a space set up for it. Goes in my bathroom, where it can be isolated. And then the day after, I had the car lined up, I had a ride lined up, off to the vet, gets spayed and neutered. I pick him up the same day, bring him back to the bathroom to recover while I, nurse it back, make sure he's comfortable eating. Um, and yeah, that's about it. We keep them covered to keep them calm. We keep the cages covered. If it's a friendly cat, then you've got a lot on your hands, and you're starting to look for a foster. Um, and if it's a cat who has more complicated things going on, um, you're starting a fundraiser. There's no way to do this without a fundraiser, unfortunately,
Right,
unless you've
right.
got lots of money at your disposal.
Uh,
And that's another thing about rescuing. You really have to function almost like an organization. You've got the network of fosters, you've got the network of donors, and it comes with so much more than what I ever thought um,
and
rescue
and
entails.
and now that you've established, you do have vets that offer a discount for what you need done.
Yes, some of the vets, and we now have two low cost vet clinics, including the Cat Cafe, the Brooklyn Cat Cafe, Rescue Clinic, and the Flatbush Cats clinic, which just opened up, spay and neuter clinic only. Um, and so those are the two main places. Those are the cheapest options we have, because they do have grants and stuff that helps them reduce the cost. But even then, on average, the cost of spaying and neutering a cat at these clinics ranges from 110 to 150. So that's a lot
So
per cat.
that's with the discount, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
And that kitten or adult
With kittens, you've got to get them sets of um,
shots.
vaccines. Yeah, vaccines and dewormers, and they're often sickly, so we might need antibiotics, eye drops, all kinds of things, and that is much more complicated. Also, keep in mind they're not going to be adopted right away because they're still small. They may need to be with mom or just um, growing up in a foster home for a little bit. So that's a time commitment. And that is a resource. It takes much more. I've had a litter of kittens handed to me along with mom, and it took, I think, 7, 8 months for them to all finally find their um, find their homes. And thankfully,
Wow.
Rose Martin, the rescuer I mentioned earlier, um, took this litter off my hands and took care of them. And I'm just so grateful for that, because then I could continue doing TNR, instead of um, like investing all my resources into getting those kittens ready for adoption. It just is a lot more complicated and requires a lot more money for sure, a lot more fundraising.
Right. And kittens don't go back on the street. You try to socialize them and get them
If
homes.
they're a certain age, we can do that. But that also requires a foster who maybe may want to learn how to socialize kittens. That's a whole new problem. you know, someone who I've done it, I do it myself. Socialize kittens. I actually ended up adopting two that um, I they came to me at 12 weeks. 6 weeks is when they that sort of socialization window closes. Um, it gets much more difficult to socialize a kitten past that age if they haven't had any human contact.
6 weeks.
6 weeks. But these guys came to me when they were 12 weeks, which is pretty far along. And
Wow.
they were hissing and they were spitting and they didn't want to be touched. and now they cuddle with me at night and they sleep next to us, of course.
That's you see that's you're like super foster super mom. That's
It's yeah. There are systems. People I've taught the systems to people. The socialization sort of process, and there are others who have sort of created this template of courses, um, and it's such an invaluable resource that I often walk my fosters through, so that anyone willing to put in the time and the effort because it's a daily process socializing kittens, and sometimes it takes months. For these guys that I ended up adopting, it did take months before they were touchable. um,
and look at them now.
exactly.
So now you teach what you've learned to other people. So have many people kind of reached out to you? Because you said in Bed-Stuy where you are now, there's
Mhm.
a lot more of a network of people. Are have you seen new people kind of start at where you were a year ago, say, and you've been able to teach them, which I think is wonderful, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is one of the things I really enjoy doing. Even trapping basics. I love that stuff because, once you get good at the trapping, you can then pass on those skills. And it's tips and tricks like that that really make a difference. And yeah, I just worked with another rescuer who literally just had her first rescue. She found a friendly cat. We were trying to figure out if it's a male, it's a female, So it was kind of nice to have that for once be able to help someone else walk through these difficult first steps.
That's
But yeah,
awesome.
we definitely work with new rescuers coming into our community of NARN rescuers, the Bed-Stuy rescuers.
And I assume you have a day job.
Absolutely. There's a way there, I need something to fund the rescue work I do. And most of us
Right.
rescuers have full-time jobs or we're in school and still doing this, and we have families, and yeah, it takes up your whole life, but, I think most of us think about the cats that we're caring for and think about the ones, hurting outside, who need us almost every day. It never stops.
Right. I think that's what I know the education,
Mhm.
educating the community um, that are not in it 24/7 in the weeds, that just like animals but don't do anything about it. I think they're understanding we all have day jobs. I have a day job. This is not
Mhm.
my full time. I wish it was, but we're not there
Yeah.
yet. So
Yeah, I think
everybody's got a life, and this is a second life or even a third life on top of
yeah,
it.
exactly. No one I know one person who does it full time for a living, and she does it through like social media. I don't even know how, but
Right.
only one person that I know is a full time rescuer. But most of us are just regular individuals trying to find some ways to fund this very expensive hobby of helping cats.
And social media is how you do your fundraising.
A lot of it is social media. Sometimes I do get word of mouth, referrals, and even my fosters who just want to help in any way they can. They may both foster um, and donate supplies as well. That's another way of helping.
Right.
But I think there's so much that can be done, even if you are super busy at work. You want to help trap sometimes, but you want to just transport the cats. Um, that is an excellent way to help, and donating is a big resource. It really kind of powers the engine that rescues.
So how do people find you?
People can find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is BK Rescues. And yeah, I'm also on TikTok and YouTube with the same name, same handle.
Awesome. And people could donate to you through that.
Yeah, there's a link on my bio in my bio to all the ways that you can help.
Awesome. So the last thing I like to do
Mhm.
is I'm going to give you the floor for as long as you want.
Uh-huh.
Um, what is your biggest piece of advice, or what do you want to say? I'm going to just shut up and give you the floor. The biggest thing you want, the biggest message, the biggest thing you want to get across to somebody, whether it's advice or anything, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I think I'd like to remind you that the cat who is suffering out there, that you may be looking for someone to help them, but it might be you. There's a very good chance it's you that they're waiting for, and there isn't anyone else there. And so all it takes is that decision to help, that decision to step up and say, yeah, that I'm their best hope. And you may not know how to help them, but I didn't. I didn't know how to help Miss Andrew, and look where I am. And people do come, and it works out. It works out, but you do have to decide that you're that person who's going to step up. That
That's could not that couldn't be more true. Listen, in Miss Andrews' memory, um, thank you for what you do. It really feels like you've been doing this for longer than 1 year. Um,
I agree.
when you said a year, that couldn't.
It's been a tough year.
I thought you were going to say 5, 10. That you've been able to do that in 1 year,
Yeah.
and you're part of a wonderful network of people that want to help.
Yeah.
I have when I had John Lynn and Megan from Greenpoint Cats and
Mhm.
Puppy Kitty.
Yeah.
Um, they went on a whole thing about just everything that's going on in New York City, the five
Mhm.
boroughs with the homeless cats. So the fact that you've jumped in, that you're part of this battle to try to help these homeless cats. My fifth and final foster fail is a 13-year-old death row from animal control,
Oh, that's wonderful, though, that you
and
were
he's
able to get there.
with hours to go. He just jumped in the chair that I was
Oh,
I got up for a second, and now he's sitting in my
that's
desk
wonderful.
chair. I love him. He's a 13-year-old kitten. His name is Taylor.
Oh,
He is, and it's like he's always been here. My other four,
yeah,
all rescues, accepted him like instantly.
that's really
And,
wonderful.
and he
And
had a horrible, he was kicked out. His whole
yeah,
family died. It was like a whole thing. And he shut down in the shelter. And I just looked at his face and I said, I got to grab at least one.
yeah,
And he
that's it
is,
exactly. You stepped up. You were the person who stepped up. You
and now,
decided to do it.
yeah, and now he is a little. I call him a 13-year-old kitten because he plays, and my younger cats look at him like, dude, can you slow down for a minute? He is,
He's young at heart. Yeah.
the report said not responding, he needs to get out of here. I think they copy and paste those things
It's
because it's
so true, though, for so many cats. All they need is that one person who connects with them, that one person who gives them, time of day. And just a couple of minutes outside of the shelter, and you can see
Yeah.
already what a difference it makes.
Literally within a day, the first night was rough for him, but literally within
Yeah.
within like a day or two, that week, you saw him like completely change.
Yeah, that's where fostering comes in. Fostering gives those cats that I like to say that fostering is what stands between a cat being homeless and a cat having a home with you and being safe.
It
Like,
makes Yeah, it makes such a difference.
and that's, I can't rescue a friendly cat unless I have a foster lined up. And if I do, it's wonderful. I just bring in the cat and they go to foster. That's it.
Well, thank you for what you do. I'm definitely going to have you on again in a few months
I'd
to
love to
kind of
be here.
follow the journey that
Yeah.
you've been on. Thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you for
Um,
having me.
it's just really great. Who was that cat that was chiming in the whole time?
That's Pesto. Pesto got off
Pesto.
easy. He was scheduled for surgery today, but fundraising mishap and we don't have enough, so we're delaying his surgery, and so he's very happy and rowdy today. He's celebrating.
Hey,
Yeah.
if I reschedule a doctor's appointment, I do the same thing.
Oh
So
yeah.
I completely sympathize.
It's a reason to
So
celebrate for
so
sure.
enjoy the delay, Pesto. Uh, Thank you again for everything you do. I'm so appreciative.
Oh, thank you.
Keep up the fight, and I'm definitely going to have you on again in a few months just to get more stories. And I really appreciate your insight.
Oh, thank you so much for the kind words, Dan. You have a wonderful night. I really appreciate being here.
So BK Rescues on Instagram.
Hmm.
Find her on Instagram, TikTok. Donate, foster, help her out, give
Hmm.
her more traps, get her a car. Anything you could do. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye. Dan the Catman here, and there you have it, good people. How awesome was that? I could have talked to her for hours, but she had cats to take care of. You heard one of them in the background, so I couldn't keep her any longer. So, Laila, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for just doing something, for helping. Thank you for not giving up after Miss Andrew and what happened to her. And I think you did the best you could. I know we never think we do, and we always live with guilt. Every cat that I've lost, I still feel like I never did enough. And I blame myself. We always blame ourselves, but you did everything you could. Thank you for everything you do. It just warms my heart that there are people like that out there that care about these wonderful, wonderful creatures. Mike Taylor is now laying in my chair that I was using to record, which means I have to stand up, but he comes first. He is just proof that if you just do something, if you save at least just one, it starts a cascade of a process where more cats like him can get off the streets, can get the help they need, and can get into good, loving homes. So thank you, Laila. Go find her on Instagram and TikTok. BK Rescue. Donate if you can. Support her cause. If you can foster, and if you're in Brooklyn, reach out to her. There's never not a need for fosters. And I'm going to say it again. There is nothing. I sucked at it because I failed 3 times. But there is nothing more rewarding and more necessary than somebody who has a spare room and has just a little bit of time to foster these cats and show them what they could have. Show them the love of a home. Because at the end of the day, they all should get homes. The end goal, the wish list, bucket list, the end goal is that they all get homes. Loving, safe, fun, secure, loving homes. They all deserve it. Everybody deserves a good home, especially a cat, because a cat that's happy in a good home, there is no better feeling in the world than when the cat finds a good home. There's no better feeling in the world, better than love, better than sex, better than the best cookie you could ever eat. There is nothing better when you see your cat just, like I'm looking at my Taylor right now. He's falling asleep in the chair. This was a cat that 6 months ago was about to be put down. And now he's cozy, he's sleeping in the chair, he's safe, and he knows he's loved. And they all deserve that. They all deserve to be loved like my old man Taylor. They do. So do what you can. Be inspired. Don't give up the fight. And thank you so much, Laila, for being on the show. So with that, we'll see you next week for the 30th episode. And a guest I've tried to get for many, many, many weeks, and finally got him. And have a good week. Cuddle with your cats, and we'll see you in episode 30. Good night.